What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Uprise Live here on a Memorial Day Monday. Today, we're going to reassess where the Portland Trail Blazers are at with a month until the NBA draft. We're going to discuss whether they should buy or sell, and I really want your thoughts on that question in this live stream. We're also going to discuss the NBA playoffs. Is SGA the number one flopper in the league, or is it Jalen Brunson? We're going to have that conversation as the Thunder beat the Timberwolves today to take a commanding 3-1 series lead. We're also going to touch base on the Knicks and Pacers. The Knicks getting a must-win Game 3 in Indiana, coming back from 20 points, a 20-point deficit. There was a headline that said, "Chokes on you," regarding the Indiana Pacers choking a 20-point lead, and of course, a reference to Tyrese Halliburton's choke gesture in Game 1. That series has been pure cinema. And we'll probably answer your questions because we got a light stream tonight. Not many topics. So it's just a perfect time for a little bit of a Q&A. We'll talk with chat. We'll get your thoughts on things. And that's going to be our stream for today. Eric, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
I'm good, Tori. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. Hopefully, everybody out there had a good weekend as well. Let me know what you did this weekend like we normally do on Monday. It's always interesting to see what you guys are up to out there. But I'm enjoying a nice 3-day weekend. Of course, taking today off for Memorial Day. And then I have a 3-day weekend next weekend. Friday, going to the beach. Because Friday's my birthday, so I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
Yep. Beach, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Looking forward to that. So it's a good time right now. Weather's all nice. I'm feeling good.
You and Shaden Sharp.
Shaden, yep, me and Shaden Sharp, man. Greatest birthday ever. And Harrison Barnes. I forget. There's somebody else that might have had that birthday. I forget who. Was it Carmelo? I gotta look this up right now. Carmelo birthday. No, his is May 29th, not May 30th. May 29th. I'm fine with that. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of touching base again on where the Blazers are at. Because I feel like recent streams, we did a big board. We talked a lot about prospects. Of course, we had our mock offseason stream on Friday, our mock offseason where we get 30 people together. We each run a team. We each have trades, have a draft, basically run through an entire offseason. Of course, with all the trades, the order for the mock offseason draft is different from real life. Picks are traded and whatnot, and man, the comment section on that video is so many people that didn't listen to the intro of that live stream where we talk about how it's a mock off season, not just a mock draft, and a bunch of people immediately go into the comment section and complaining. So I just bring that up to say, shout out to you if you actually listened to the intro. I appreciate it because there's a lot of people that seemingly don't listen to the intro that explains what they're watching. And then they just go down to the comment section and complain about it. So, appreciate you guys listening to my intros. I put a lot of effort into them. No scripting. Off the top. And, yeah, so, appreciate that.
You know what's funny, though? They had to watch at least part of the stream to see the draft order.
Yeah, that's the part that confuses me. Like, they just skipped ahead to see what picks are where. I mean, people do that with mock drafts, let's be honest. So I guess that's what it was. And then they're like, why is New Orleans picking at 30? It's supposed to be the Clippers. And, yeah, all right. So, that's always fun.
Idiot.
Yeah. We're just we don't know what we're doing. We can't even get the draft order right, apparently. But, yeah, so we had the mock offseason draft on Friday. If you hung out with us for that, appreciate you. If you want to see the selections for the second round as well as the first round, as well as all the trades, you could join our Discord. Make sure you turn on the mock offseason threads for 2025 so you can go see what's happened. And, of course, you can give your thoughts. We're trying to get our Discord to 1,000 members. We're at about 900 right now, so now's a perfect time for you to join the Discord. We will interact there all the time throughout the season, especially this upcoming season. So make sure you're a part of that. But yeah, like I said, we had the big stream about the Blazers selling. We had a big board. We did have a stream talking about a potential Giannis trade or an MPJ trade. We summed up mock draft reactions. This is just the content that we've been putting out all off season long. But we haven't really done a full kind of deep dive on the state of the team since the lottery. And I think this is a good stream to do so. Just kind of reassess our thoughts on things, how we feel about certain Trailblazer players, but also just kind of compare where we think this team is at to the conference finals action that we've been watching. How far away are the Portland Trailblazers from reaching that level? And of course, what goes into that conversation is, should the Blazers buy or sell this offseason? Do the Blazers have the right mindset this offseason? I feel like the Blazers are going into this offseason with the completely wrong mindset. And I'm going to explain why a little bit later. If you agree, you probably have watched streams before. You probably know why I feel that way. If you disagree, I would love later in the stream to hear exactly why you disagree. We can have a conversation on that. So that's why I'm really looking forward to this episode. But we got to talk about playoffs, man. We got to talk about playoffs. Eric, I'll let you choose. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's get this game from tonight over with, this series, because this series is pretty much over. It's 3-1 now. I mean, of course, you can come back from 3-1. It's happened before, but the Thunder are just the better team.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when the Thunder won Game 7 against the Nuggets, it felt like they were by far the best team left in this tournament. And I was hoping that this dynasty would have a little bit more pressure on it in terms of, should they make a move? Should they break up something? Should they just run the course? Or what happens if they fail again next year? Whatever. It obviously could still happen if they lose in the finals, or it'd be awesome if they blew a 3-1 lead here. But it just, I don't want the dynasty to start right now because they have such a large window, assuming they do what it takes to keep the main guys together. But they also have the assets to keep plugging in cheaper contracts to the end of the roster with draft picks and stuff like that. So if they continue to hit on a couple of picks and stuff like that, it could be really scary for years. And hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's just kind of the reality of the Thunder being so dominant right now.
Yeah, I had Thunder in 5. This series has pretty much gone like I've thought. Basically, Anthony Edwards can have a hot game where he scores well. He had 32, 9, and 6 in game 2, and they still lose convincingly. But then if you're able to slow him down like the Thunder did tonight, it's going to be really tough to win. They still almost did it because Nickeil Alexander-Walker had a great game. Other guys stepped up for the Timberwolves, and that was my biggest concern going into the series, was like, all right, who's going to step up next to Anthony Edwards, next to Julius Randle? Also, could we see a return of the Julius Randle that struggled in playoff series before this year? I still think against teams that can be physical with him, he tends to struggle, and he's not having the best series so far. I know he had a good game in, game 1, but tonight, Julius Randle, 5 points, 1 for 7. 5 turnovers, 3 assists, 7 rebounds. He was awful, and we're talking about a game the Timberwolves lost by 2. They put 126 on the board. Right, Anthony Edwards, 5 for 13, only 16 points. It was DiVincenzo, 7 for 11. He had 21. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 23 points, 9 for 15. Jaden McDaniels, 22 points, 9 for 15. Those guys stepped up. Naz Reid, 11 points off the bench in 23 minutes. I mean, Terrence Shannon Jr., 9 points in 8 minutes. He's given them a spark. One of my favorite draft crushes from last year. It looks good right now, at least on the offensive end. His defense was pretty atrocious tonight and had a couple bad turnovers, but, I mean, he's a rookie playing in the Western Conference Finals. That's kind of what you should expect out of a rookie playing in the Western Conference Finals. It's just not enough. Like, Anthony Edwards has to be more aggressive, has to get more shots up, but he was 1 for 7 today. It's the best defensive team in the league that they're going up against, and the Timberwolves don't have a Jokic and don't have the offensive firepower to actually make this more of a series. I will say this, though. I truly do believe the one team that has a legitimate chance at toppling the Thunder is the Indiana Pacers. I truly want Indiana out of the East, part of the reason is I think they are definitely capable of beating the Thunder. I don't think the Knicks are. Of course, I discounted the Knicks against the Celtics, but when you look at how fast and how scrappy and quick the Thunder play, the small ball that they play with, I think the Pacers are the only ones that can somewhat match that. And it almost feels like, unless you have an outlier like a Nikola Jokic, like Denver has, championship experience, all that, they still couldn't win that series. If you don't have that, you got to at least be able to play OKC's game a little bit, where they're going to go small. They're going to be super physical on defense. They're not going to get called for enough fouls. SGA on the other end is going to fall down every time he drives. We're going to have that conversation. And it's tough to win, at least on the road in OKC. Denver was able to do it. I don't think Minnesota's capable of doing it. I think this sends them 5. But I do think the Indiana Pacers are capable of beating them.
What's Queek?
What's a Queek?
Thunder Queek out 128, 120.
Squeak?
It says Queek.
Queek?
I'm just laughing at that.
That's funny.
The Pacers, I agree with you. It will be interesting to see if the Pacers can run and gun against the Thunder and attack that defense. But we saw in the second half of last night's game, when the Pacers got slowed down, they kind of struggled in the half court, blew that big lead. So the Thunder also have a good ability to, kind of keep teams from doing that. Now, if you would have told me tonight the Timberwolves are going to score 126, I would think this series was tied 2-2 after tonight. So the Thunder can also score with anyone is the problem. So even when you play your best offensive game in a long time, you still don't win. But yeah, Timberwolves definitely needed some help just in terms of creation and stuff like that, despite scoring so much this game. Be really interesting to see what their offseason looks like.
Yep. I hope we get a Pacers-Thunder series at the end of this thing. I do think the Pacers are the best shot at beating the Thunder. I felt that way going into these conference finals, and of course the Pacers up 2-1. I don't know. It just feels like they match up better with the Thunder than the Knicks do and than the Timberwolves do. But hopefully we get to see that take place and see how that truly goes down. And just see the difference between the number 1 team in the West and the number 4 team in the East being a lot weaker than the West. Right? Like, the Thunder will be heavily favored in that series. But I kind of think that's how the Pacers like it. Right? They were the underdog going into the series against the Cavs. They were the underdog going into the series against the Knicks. Started both those series up 2-0 on the road. Like, that team can go on the road and win games. And you're going to have to probably win one in OKC because it's really tough to take care of every home court game in a series against OKC. You got to be able to win one in Oklahoma. I mean, they have to win one anyway because they're going to be the lower seeded team. And they're not going to have home court advantage. So you're probably, if you're the Pacers playing the Thunder in the finals, you got to win multiple games in OKC most likely. So they can just get hot, like, in a way that other teams can't. That I don't think the Knicks can or the Timberwolves can. I mean, the Knicks do it through Karl Anthony Towns. They did that in Game 3 where, like, Karl Anthony Towns put the team on his back. Jalen Brunson put the team on his back. But you've seen the Thunder be able to kind of cut off the head of the snake. Nikola Jokic had some really rough games. Really rough games in the second round. Statistically still a decent night, but by Jokic standards, really rough games. And you've seen Anthony Edwards have a couple of pretty bad games. You've seen Julius Randle kind of get taken out of this series, at least really struggled in games 2 and 4. I feel like they would be able to do something similar to Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, and I just don't know if I trust the supporting cast around those guys as much as I trust, like, Halliburton's going to be able to find guys, get guys going. They have so many threats in Indiana, so many guys that can shoot and get hot that even if you, stop Halliburton from scoring, he's still going to be able to set teammates up. That's what he does best. And, Siakam will get his, but they don't have to rely upon him as much as I feel like the Knicks have to rely upon Cat. So, interesting debate which team would do better, but at the end of the day, if the refs are as in love with SGA as they seem to be, it's going to be a really tough task, Eric. I just got to get your opinion on this because I've been debating this with
been fighting with fools.
People in our Discord. That's why you got to join our Discord. What do you think of his, let's call it theatrics? What do you think of his flopping in this series especially?
Well, I kind of see both sides of the argument. On one hand, you look at the stats, and he's really not because people just think he's a foul merchant all the time, and you look at him compared to other MVPs, and he's not even near the top of MVP free throw attempts per game type statistics.
He's not. He averaged 9 a game. Is that really? Yeah, is that actually low?
In terms of all-time MVPs, yeah, it's he's 20 something in terms of MVPs, something like that. That was one of the stats that the pro SGA people were bringing up, and yeah, it was he was behind Kobe. I think even Jokic at one point averaged more. Embiid obviously did. Harden obviously did.
The most free throw attempts.
Giannis almost did.
The most free throw attempts per game Jokic has ever averaged was this year at 6.4.
Maybe that it wasn't Jokic.
Yeah.
But Giannis definitely has had more attempts in a season. Embiid obviously has.
Yeah. Giannis has 2 MVP seasons for reference, 9.5 and 10 free throw attempts per game. SGA the last 3 years has been between 9 and 10. So yeah, pretty similar.
Yeah. So I get it. It's what good players do usually. They find a way to get to the line. I have a big problem with people who get to it because they're physical and take, punishment and go in and use their body to draw fouls.
Yeah.
And people who try to fool the refs into thinking they're fouled when they're not. Yeah. And so I think that's where the disconnect is for me with the people who don't have an issue with it, because I thought this kind of foul baiting was supposed to be refed out of the league a couple years ago, and they kind of just forgot about that all of a sudden, and they started letting people pump fake and then go under someone. But nothing pisses me off more in the basketball game, Tori, when you're guarding someone and they stick out their arm and initiate all the contact and they call a foul on you. You're just standing there. It's no, the offensive player initiated the contact. Either don't call anything or don't call me for a foul, or call him for a foul. So that it's just kind of crazy. And Harden used to do this stuff too, where he would hook an arm and make it look like the arm is fouling him or something. And he's really slick about it. And I'm not saying I dislike SGA or anything like that. He's a heck of a player and a deserving MVP this year. And obviously he has the team, one of the youngest teams ever on the brink of for a championship team. I think they're going to beat Portland's record if they win it all. Because I think Portland currently has the youngest team ever to win a championship. But I don't know, man. It's just something about the way he tries to fool the refs instead of just playing basketball. It drives me a little crazy.
There was a stretch in the second quarter. I think it was within 4 minutes. This dude flopped 5 times. I was keeping track. This dude had 5 egregious flops in 4 minutes. And what he does that really pisses me off, and I think pisses off a lot of NBA fans, is he'll drive, he will lean into the defender to create some contact, and then his legs will just like give out from underneath him. He'll like crumple to the floor. He will create contact, and then the second he's creating contact, he starts crumpling to the floor. And he gets calls.
Weak knees, yeah.
Yeah, or it's, he'll put his arm into the defender a little bit and then, like, push himself off so it looks like he's getting, like, shoved and he's, like, flailing away. But there was 2 drives in this stretch that I'm talking about where he drives and there's, like, no contact and he's just, like, throwing up a shot while he's just, like, flailing to the floor. And it's like, dude, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, Embiid's on the floor a lot. People hate that. But, like, for him, he said, he tries to fall so he doesn't impact his knees because he has really bad knees. Like, all right, I understand that. SGA, it's not like that. This dude will literally drive, and he's just searching for any reason to fall to the floor. There's just been too many examples of where he drives into traffic but doesn't even get touched. But because people around him, he throws up a shot while he's just crumpling to the floor. And it's ridiculous. And you look at how many free throw attempts he had tonight, 14. It's like, oh, he almost had a 40-point triple-double, 40, 10, and 9. He was 13 for 30. Like, yeah, I give credit where it's due, 10 assists as well. Like, it was a good game from him, but he's 13 for 30. It's not like he was as good as a 40-point night would suggest. He wasn't particularly efficient. Why did he get to 40 points? He was able to get to the line 14 times. Now, some of those are legit fouls, but it's like you don't get the benefit of the doubt when you do the stuff that he does, and the NBA has to get better about reffing this stuff, and especially in this year's playoffs where they let legitimate contact go on drives, and then, a gust of wind knocks SGA over and it's a foul. I think there's just been a double standard for some reason with him, which is why there is a lot of frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I just wish, if you're obviously not trying to even score, you're just trying to get a foul. There's a difference between attacking because the other team's in foul trouble and, simply trying to flail your body to get a call. It's ridiculous, man. And hopefully, like you said, the NBA finds a way to curtail it a little bit. But as of right now, it's working for him. I mean, I guess if this was someone on the Blazers doing this, so we'd be applauding for how much he gets to the line. Denny, he got to the line a lot when he started cooking during the season.
Yeah.
And he has that play where he just drives and basically just forearm shoves someone out of the way.
But he doesn't even flop on it.
No, I know. That's
it's like the opposite. It's he will literally seek out a defender, bulldoze his way into him, and then somehow get the call. I don't understand that either, but it's more respectable than the opposite.
Yeah, but he's not pretending he gets hit by someone flailing or whatever. He's actually causing it. And I don't know if the refs start changing the way they call some of those, he might get called for offensive foul a lot more on that. But it's I don't know. He's using his strength and he's like you said, bulldozing into people, and that's fine. I think if that's what SGA was doing, that's fine. Or if he was I don't know. There's a difference between being crafty and being deceitful, I think. So that's where I think the difference is for me. I have no problem if you like free throws or whatever. Obviously makes the games go a lot longer and they're not quite as action packed when it's just free throws. But for me, it's just there is a skill into getting into the line. I don't respect as much when it's the fooling skill, not the actual getting fouled on multiple drives. Because there are players that do get fouled a lot, and Brandon Roy. I don't know if I know you watched or started watching when Roy was on the team, but he used to never get calls, and then he started doing this grunt thing whenever he drove.
Yeah.
And he started getting calls a lot more. Dame, I think, kind of started doing that too.
I'm not going to lie, I do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you just kind of accentuate a little bit, and I think that's a lot different.
Yeah.
Like just trying to draw attention to the fact you just got hit. Like how many times in the last couple of years when Dame was here did he drive and get like hit on the head with someone like reaching in and like no call, and Dame was just like dumbfounded on how like the refs keep missing these fouls, and it's frustrating, man.
Yeah. It's funny because I saw Blazer fans like rooting for the Thunder because they this is in our Discord. Blazer fans rooting for the Thunder because they think, the SGA disrespect is too much. And I'm just like, dude, this team is going to torture us for the next decade. And if the Blazers played SGA in a playoff series, every Blazer fan would be completely fed up with the way he flops. So it was super confusing to me to see Blazer fans rooting for the Thunder. I can't root for the Thunder. They are the only team, I think, other than maybe San Antonio if Wemby truly becomes like a top 5 player of all time. But even then, right, like OKC, I think, is best positioned to be a dynasty because under the new CBA, with the way it restricts teams that have to spend, even if it's on your own guys that you drafted, it's really hard to maintain a high enough level to consistently win championships. That's why Denver lost Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Those were two big pieces for them, and they've struggled to get back to the championship level that they were at when they won a championship, right? And, second apron, first apron, we talk about all the time. It's generally restrictive on teams like the Thunder, once guys like Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams get paid. Of course, SGA is paid, and they paid Isaiah Hartenstein. They paid Alex Caruso. At some point, like Aaron Wiggins is going to get paid. I forget what he's making, but he'll probably get a bigger payday. So that team is going to struggle to maintain all its guys. So you would think, okay, it's going to take a step back. But they have so many draft picks to either trade for role players to replace those guys that for some reason are on cheap contracts. Let's say the next Denny Avdia, because, Denny Avdia is on a great contract. The next player like that becomes available, right? They have all these draft picks to trade for him, or they just have so many shots at the draft that they'll be able to replenish their young, cheap talent on rookie contracts. They are the only team that's legitimately positioned to have a dynasty over the next 10 years. So I am absolutely rooting for their downfall because they're basically inevitable. They are basically inevitable. They are going to win, I believe, multiple championships in the next decade, unfortunately. So I hope that's not this year. I hope it doesn't start this year because they are going to be a thorn in the side of the Western Conference for a long time.
Well, JP Savvy in chat's saying, I'm rooting for the Thunder because you never know what happens next year. I mean, they have SGA locked up. They have...
You're rooting for them because you don't know what next year brings? I don't understand.
I think he's saying anything can happen type attitude. Like nothing's guaranteed that they...
Sure, but I'm telling you, we'll look back like 3 years from now. Like, how could we have ever rooted for the Thunder? Like 3 or 4 years from now, it'll be like they'll be hated by us. Every Blazer fan, I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. So,
okay, let's say you're like, okay, the Thunder are beatable. Like they're not guaranteed to be good. Like what does that look like? Because I'm trying to think. I know SGA, Chet obviously is still a rookie contract for another year. J-Dub's still a rookie contract for another year.
yeah,
They just locked up Caruso for multiple years. They signed Hartenstein for a couple of years.
yes.
Like where are they going to lose their like how are they going to lose this team? All those guys are still in their 20s.
Like they're gonna have to pay J-Dub and Chet max extensions, and then plus SGA, plus what they're paying Caruso. He's making $21 million a year on his extension, plus what they're paying Hardenstein. Like, yeah, it's gonna be tough. But
that's the only thing. Like you can hope for. I think is, do they have the same problem they had when they had Harden, Durant, and Westbrook? and they decide, and Ibaka, do they decide to not pay all those guys and get rid of one? Maybe. I guess that's the only thing you can hope for is that they decide, oh, we've won 2 championships already.
Yeah.
Let's just break up this team now because we have 8 million draft picks to replace them right away with.
Yeah. But yeah, like that's why I'm going to root for Minnesota because it's going to be tough for Minnesota to get back here next year. I know they did it 2 years in a row, but like they are definitely beatable. I think they would have lost to the Warriors if the Steph Curry didn't get hurt. They lost game 1. Like I think the Nuggets would beat this Timberwolves team. The Timberwolves are kind of like a competitive enough Western Conference team to make the conference finals, but it's slowly becoming the Thunder and everybody else, right? That's why you got the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, and then they're facing the 6th-seed Timberwolves. And it's going to continue to get like that because Chet's going to continue to get better. Jalen Williams is going to continue to get better. These guys are young, right? So it's like there's a comment in chat like, let's see. It changes nothing for the future of the Blazers if the Thunder win this year or not. Yeah, I'm not saying it does, but ultimately we are going to be sick and tired of this Thunder team. This Thunder team is going to be here constantly. So yeah, I'm rooting for their downfall. Why would I be rooting for the Thunder, man? They are, like, 3 years from now, you will not be rooting for the Thunder. It'll be, man, they're back here again. Will a team beat them? It'll start, in my opinion, it'll get to the point where it starts to feel like how it did with the Cavs coming out of the East or the Warriors coming out of the West. That's truly what I think about this Thunder team. And if that's not the case, okay, cool. That means there's more parity in the Western Conference. That's only going to benefit the Blazers in the future. That's what I'm rooting for, right? But that's the one team that could just be there all the time. That's really hard to beat. And then it's like, if San Antonio becomes that special, then it's like, man, those two teams, like you could legitimately see in the Western Conference Finals for consecutive years. Now, injuries happen. We just saw Tatum get hurt. Of course, like anything can happen and things can change, but this team is the best positioned team in the league by far over the next decade, and I am not going to root for them now because SGA flops and people call it out. It doesn't make sense. So, screw the Thunder. Screw the Thunder.
Well, I mean, it does kind of affect us because we have to beat them if we're going to build a championship roster. Yeah. And like maybe you don't care about winning championships.
Well, it doesn't affect us like now, but in the future, yeah, for sure.
Well, building this team. And then that's why it sucked when the Mavericks and the Spurs get 1 and 2 in this lotto.
Yeah.
Because now, the Mavericks, they were a team that was at best setting themselves up for a 2 or 3 year window, and then the bottom was going to fall out and they were screwed. And they didn't control many of their picks past this year for a while. So they got the one lucky break to like save their franchise from completely bottoming out, and now you have to worry about how they build around Cooper Flag over the next few years. And then San Antonio getting the second pick, and which most likely will be Dylan Harper or traded for Giannis. Like either way, it's a tough thing because now not only do you have this super young Thunder team that should be in this position or close to this position for multiple years, but you also have these other teams that weren't even in the playoffs this year that keep getting these lucky breaks that are building teams that in a couple years could be where the Thunder are now. And so instead of just one team, you're getting lucky. Maybe they're on the other side of the bracket and get in a tough series or get worn down or have an injury, like you said. Maybe you beat them 1 year, but then you might have 1 or 2 other teams too that are just as good as them in a couple of years, and you have to beat those guys too. So it's kind of deflating when you think about it. But I mean, it shouldn't affect what Portland does to build a team, and hopefully they can match what those guys are putting together. It's just I don't see how it's like possible right now especially if we're going to lead this into the Blazers being buyers this offseason
Yeah.
and kind of making a goal of making the playoffs more of a short-term goal than a long-term of building to beat those teams.
Yeah. There's comments in chat that just have to make the playoffs before you start worrying. Okay, like the Blazers are going to have to contend. You should be basically looking at the future of the Western Conference and the future of your own franchise and thinking, how can we get into that tier where we can compete against a team like this? And if you're not planning to do that, then you're just planning to be mediocre. So that's my thoughts on that comment. So you hate them because you ain't them as far as OKC. Well, I hate them because, one, SGA flops like crazy. I don't even hate them. It's not like a visceral hatred. It's more like SJ flops too much, and they're going to be here for the next decade. Like, we're going to see them win multiple championships. So anytime another team has a chance to beat them, a team like the Timberwolves, I'd rather see that happen. Because I like having parity in the NBA. We're going to have the 7th different champion for the last 7 years. Guess what? That favors the Blazers to hopefully win one in my freaking lifetime, okay? Because it's been 48 years since they've won one. They haven't won one in Eric's lifetime, right? So parity favors the Blazers. I want to see parity. I want to see different teams able to make runs, and the Thunder are a threat to that, and credit to them. But I'm going to root for the underdog, for the team that has a chance of beating them. I'm definitely going to root for that outside of it being the Lakers, because they're going to be here for a long time. So, yeah, that's why. That's why. Would love to see the Timberwolves take care of business. I would have loved a Denver Timberwolves Western Conference Finals. The East has been super fun because you got Pacers, Knicks. You got two teams that people didn't expect to be there. They expected Boston and Cleveland, which would have been a great series in its own right. But that's the thing is, like, going into the playoffs, you have multiple teams with a chance at it. All right? Nobody was taking the Pacers to make the finals, but they outplayed the Cavs, who were great all regular season. And they have outplayed the Knicks so far in this series. They probably should be up 3-0. Or, well, they should be. If we use that logic, they should have lost game 1. This series has been absolutely wild. So, multiple teams having a chance going into the playoffs is good. It's fun. As an NBA fan, it's fun. As a Blazer fan, hopefully the Blazers get into a position where they're like this year's Pacers one year. Because that's probably what it'd have to be for the Blazers in order to make a run to the finals. So that's why I'm not rooting for a team that is set up to potentially destroy the Western Conference over the next decade. So that's my reasoning. But to segue this to the conversation that is the topic of the stream, kind of reassessing where the Blazers are at, we'll talk about the Eastern Conference at the end of the stream. We'll preview tomorrow's game, all that good stuff. But the West is so tough. You got the Mavs, they're going to have Flag, okay? You got the Spurs, they're going to be better. They could trade for Giannis. They're going to be probably aggressive this offseason. At this point, Eric, let's just get this out of the way. This is without knowing what the Blazers are going to do this offseason, but let's say they, try and make an upgrade. But if you had to guess as to where the Blazers are at the end of the next year, I would guess they're 11th or 12th in the West. Do you agree with that? Or do you think, without knowing how this offseason goes, do you think they'll be in the play-in next year? At least.
Let me think about that for a second. But I mean, even if they're in is 10th really that much different than 11th or 12th?
No, but just for conversational purposes.
I'm gonna get one extra game.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about the notion of going for 10th. But just if you had to guess right now on May 26, 2025, are the Blazers in the playoffs or playing next year, or are they not? Chat, let me know what you would predict.
I obviously, like you said, it depends on moves, but we're obviously not better than the Thunder. The Rockets I mean, they were the 2 seed, regardless of what happened in the playoffs. I think regular season.
I think
you'd
it's
have
easier to
put them
do this
above
the
us.
other way, where like, what teams are we better than
No.
next year?
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I don't think there's many teams. So like when you get down into the later parts of it, I think the Timberwolves are better than us. Clippers, you never know. They're a wild card team. Could we be better than the Clippers next year? Harden's a year older. Kawhi, who knows how much he plays. Sure, we could be better than them. Warriors, maybe. I mean, they're getting pretty old too. But they still have Steph and now Jimmy. I don't know. I think that's going to be tough to be better than them in the regular season unless they just all of a sudden get really old and injured fast, which is obviously possible. I think we could be better than the Grizzlies next year. I think we could be better than the Kings. The Grizzlies is solely dependent on if they kind of run status quo like they have been, or if they make a big move, depending on what that is. Could we be better than the Kings next year? Yes. Mavericks, I mean, Kyrie's out, you'd think, most of the year, if not the whole year. So you have Anthony Davis and Cooper Flag. I don't know. I mean, I think we probably could be somewhere with them again, fighting for that play-in spot. The Suns, I mean, we were tied with them this year. It kind of depends on if they kind of reset a little bit, retool, or if they try to trade Durant for like win now type move to keep it going. But I think we could be better than them again because that just seems to be a bad situation there. But then you have the Spurs, I think, should be better than us. Just adding the second pick, having Fox for a full year, having Wemby back healthy, knock on wood, hopefully. I think they're better than us. I think we still could be better than the Pelicans and Jazz. So,
Western Conference breakdown.
That puts us right in somewhere between 8 and 12. Yeah, like
but like, if you had to place money on it today, not knowing how this offseason goes, would you place money on the Blazers being in the playoffs and or play-in, or would you place money on them being 11th or lower?
I would put money on us being 10th.
I'm putting money on us being 11th or lower.
All right.
Like, the Blazers had generally pretty good health this year. We know it seems like every other season they're just cursed by injuries. And it's still Chauncey coaching, and I don't think they're actually going to make a big move. I just, like, the teams that I'm confident putting them above right now, confident putting them above, is Utah, Sacramento, and probably Phoenix. Other than that, I'm not confident putting us above any other team. That puts us 12th. Like, yeah, of course, I think New Orleans, if healthy, I think is neck and neck with Portland, at least.
If healthy is...
Yeah, but I mean, if healthy is a big thing for Portland almost every year, right? Like,
yeah,
but
I don't know.
That's the thing, is like New Orleans was a fringe playoff team before. Trey Murphy's gotten better. DeJounte's going to be hurt, but they still have CJ. You have Zion. You have the 7th pick. Like, they have some talent. And Zion, when he plays, like, if he's healthy, he's better than anybody on the Blazers. So those two teams are comparable going into next year. The Blazers, if both teams are healthy, the Blazers could absolutely, definitely be better than them, but the Pelicans could also be better than the Blazers. I'm not confident putting the Blazers ahead of the Pelicans.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is we're sitting here like, yeah, the Blazers, they're going to need a couple teams to get really hurt, and they're going to have to be healthy in order to make the play-in. Right? Like, it doesn't really feel like, yeah, I'm confident thinking that they can make the play-in off of merit alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I probably vote 11th. Now, anything can happen, but it's like, the bigger point here is I think the Blazers are still multiple steps away from being competitive in a series like this, like being at Minnesota's level, and they're 6th in the West. Golden State's level. The Blazers are still, in my opinion, multiple steps away. And listen, there's people out there that don't want to hear this. They want their Blazer coverage to be like something that makes them feel good. Right? They want to listen to stuff that they want to hear, and they want to hear that the Blazers are going to be in the fight for home court advantage next year. Really, really good next year. They're going to take a huge step forward, right? They won 15 more games this year. They're going to win 15 more games next year. There's a lot of people out there that want to hear that. I'm not going to lie and not tell you what I think, okay? And this comes from somebody that when we started the channel, I was more confident about the team in 2020 and 2021 than the team ended up being. I thought they were going to be better than they ended up being, right? I mean, even when the Blazers had that hot start, when they had Josh Hart and Jeremy Grant, and they started like 10-3 or 10-4 or whatever it was, I like bought into that stretch. So it's not something where it's like, oh, Tori's just looking to be negative. It's like you still don't have a star. Okay, you're going to have so many things go perfectly next year to actually take that step. Okay, you're not drafting at the top of the draft. Like, you still have Chauncey as coach. And you're putting a lot of stock into an 11-game stretch where you won 10 games when the other 71 games last year, the Blazers were pretty much as crappy as they were the year before. Right? So they rattle off one good 11-game stretch. That's not enough for me to just sit here and run with it, right? Like, I think in order to be a top 8 playoff team, like in the first round next year, the Blazers are going to have to improve more this upcoming season than they did last season. Because it's easier to go from 21 wins to 36 wins than it is to go from 36 wins to like 48 wins, and that's what it's going to take to get into the top 8 of the West. It might take more because you got the Spurs getting better. Right? And if the Pelicans are healthier, it's going to be even harder. So, my entire point is the Blazers need to operate, and I've said this before, they need to operate with more of a long-term vision than just like, yeah, we don't want to be in the lottery this year. We don't want to trade Anthony Simons for a first-round pick because that doesn't help us get better this year. The Blazers absolutely cannot be short-sighted. The answer to buy or sell is a little bit tricky. I lean towards sell the vets, embrace the young core.
You lean?
I lean towards that. Yeah, heavily. I lean horizontally towards that.
You're heavily on that.
Well, yeah. I'll say this. There could be buying opportunities that make sense.
Yeah.
Like Denny was a buying opportunity that made sense. So that's why I'm saying lean. Like, there could be a buying opportunity that makes sense that we don't really see right now as far as like what's been hypothesized and predicted trades and whatnot. There's not really any buying opportunities that make a whole lot of sense for this team right now with what they currently have on their roster. But like they're so there was a Blazer reporter recently that basically said, Anthony Simons to Orlando won't happen. It would need a third team, and basically that if Portland wanted back a first-round pick and of Cole Anthony from Orlando, the trade probably would have already happened.
Isn't that what I said?
Yeah. And basically the implication of all this is like they don't want to make a trade that might be better for their future if it makes them worse next year, when they are not close to being a clear-cut playoff team or anything. So it's more like, man, we won 36 games. This is what I've talked about before. We've won 36 games. We feel like we're close enough where if everything goes right, we could maybe get into the top 8. So therefore, that's where we are prioritizing. That's what we're going to chase. I truly think that is the wrong mindset, but as we get closer to the draft, I'm becoming more and more convinced, and I was convinced before, but I'm becoming more and more and more convinced especially with this maybe being the last year that they own the team, with this ownership group, that whole situation, it's going to be, we want to be good next year, to the point where they are willing to not do what's best for the future if it means taking a small step back next year. And the example of that is trading Anthony Simons for a first-round pick, who maybe could become better than Anthony Simons, as well as clearing the runway for Scoot. They don't want to do that because, if anything, it's more likely that they'll be worse next year. Even though it has the upside that if Scoot breaks out, maybe they'll be better. They want to play it safe and try and get a 10 seed, and I'm convinced at this point that is going to be their path this offseason as far as the moves that they make to build this roster.
Yeah, well, here's the good part of that, though. It's going to be expected now. They've said it, that's their goal. If they don't get the 10th seed, then we finally have people maybe questioning what they're doing versus and then legitimate questions on whether the people in charge are worthy of their positions in terms of, Cronin and Billups. If a new owner comes in and is like, you guys were trying to make the playoffs this year and you still couldn't, you made sacrifices to your long-term plans to try and get a 10th seed and you couldn't even do that. So at least now there are a set of parameters for success. It's not just, oh, wow, we improved on 21 wins. They're obviously, let's give them all extensions. Now they have to prove that they're capable of bettering the team even more, because obviously 36 wins is not good enough long term. So they have to get better. They have to find a way to do it. I think you and I and most of the fans should be in agreement that it shouldn't be at the expense of any of the young core or blocking the young core or whatever. But so there was a thing, I forgot who it was from. I think it was Brett Siegel, maybe, who talked about the Pacers having both Mathurin and Jarvis Walker, and how they're not factoring much into these playoffs, and that they should probably look to move both of them for more win now players. So if you're at the point where you've been in the Eastern Conference 2 years in a row and it's like that, then I can see maybe taking that jump and doing that. But those are the exact types of players, maybe not those, like maybe not Mathurin exactly, but those types of players should be like, the Blazers should see that and be like, let's jump on that, right? Like, let's add Mathurin and Jarvis Walker to this core of five, of Scoot, Sharp, Denny, Tumani, and Klingon, right? And now we have a super young, really good seven people, 7-person rotation, and you're still building towards the future, but adding talent, like Cronin always likes to say. So those are the type of moves I think they should be looking at, versus bringing in, I don't know, Marcus Smart or something, like that could be a good move, but like I don't know what types of moves they're going to make. So it'll be, we better not get the negative stuff when we don't like a trade because it sells like our future to try and make a playoff this year, right? You're muted.
The thing I'm worried about, let me just read off this comment because it goes with it. Mason Warner says, I'm an Ant fan, but I don't think he showed enough last season to think that he's too good to lose. Scoot could pretty similarly play at a faster pace. Here's also the thing with Ant is, like, if you need to trade for a player of his archetype in the future because, like, you're maybe in the playoffs but you need that scoring punch, like, it's not the hardest archetype to trade for, right? Like, we're sitting here like, man, what can we even get for Anthony Simons? You look at what, like, Zach LaVine went for example. He did not go for much. And he was having a better start to this season than maybe any season Anthony Simons has ever had, right? And the point is like, you can trade him away, and then if you are, let Scoot have his runway, and then if you need a guy like Ant, you can always reacquire that in the future. I am truly worried about, you're going to have to let me know if this is not possible, but I believe it is, an Anthony Simons extension this offseason.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah, anyone.
Because here's the thing, it's like, he's going into the final year of his deal. If you're not going to trade him, why would you let him get close to free agency?
Well, 8-2.
Yeah. So you can extend Ant and still trade him at the deadline, correct?
Any extension now is 6 months, I think, no matter what the
extension so let's say you extended him. Well, they would have to extend him before.
Yeah, because
they could extend him in like the start of free agency, and then he'd be tradable in January.
Yeah, that's what happened with Markkanen last year. They waited till the day after he would be
really weird
ineligible to be traded that year. Well, Markkanen didn't want to be traded, so yeah.
But it's just like that is one of my biggest fears of this offseason is an Ant extension. Because you're not going to extend, like, I guess maybe they could extend him and then try and trade him at the deadline. Like, yeah, he's not a rental. He's not going to hit free agency. He has 2 more years on his deal after this year or something like that. But also, who knows what the number is for the extension? And if he struggles again this year, like he did the first half of last season, could that be a contract that teams are like, no, he's overpaid. We won't. And that you can't get anything back because it's a slippery slope with that. We just saw that with Jeremy Grant. If the Blazers give Ant an extension, to me, it's like basically committing to him and not committing to Scoot. Because you're going to have to pay him probably $25 million a year, $30 million a year, somewhere in that range. And if you're paying that guy that much money on an extension, it's not to just be like, oh yeah, if Scoot looks good, we're going to start Scoot ahead of him. If Scoot outplays him, we're going to start Scoot ahead of him. Because it's like, if that was your thinking going into the season, then why would you lock up Anthony Simons on a costly extension? If you were going into the season like, yeah, we think there's a chance that Scoot could outplay him, or we want to give Scoot the opportunity to outplay him for a starting role. That sort of thinking, I think, goes directly against, like, yeah, we're going to lock up Anthony Simons at $25 to $30 million a year. You pay that to a starting guard. You don't pay that to a guy coming off the bench, right? So that's where I am like, Anthony Simons is, to me, the ultimate guy to see just how short-sighted this front office is. In this ownership group, I guess, but this ownership group is not even... They can't be long-sighted because they're going to be gone. So I don't even know how to evaluate that. But it's like, I guess you can go into next season with him as an expiring, but then it's like, all right, what do you do with him? The clock is ticking. He's either going to hit free agency, maybe leave, or you're going to have to trade him at the deadline. And if you wait until he has, half a year left on his contract, you're probably going to get back even less, right? The problem is if the Blazers go into next year in that situation, it's going to be, man, they have to make a decision on Anthony soon. They have to put all the eggs in his basket because either they have to showcase him all year for a trade. We get to have those conversations again. Or it's like, man, we can't trade him. He only has half a year left on his contract. Then he hits free agency. Like, do we lose him for nothing? Right? That's not a good position to be in. And that's not even talking about if that's the best position for Scoot Henderson to be in, right? So as far as like, should they buy or sell? If they have the right buying opportunity, sure, but they need to trade Anthony Simons. And just so they don't have to deal with all that. And if they're looking to just to be better next year and take a step up from the 36 wins, I almost think an Anthony extension is more likely than them trading him, because you're not going to trade him magically for a better guard. But then also, if you trade him magically for a better guard that's highly paid, it's like, yeah, you're really not going to commit to Scoot. I mean, maybe you can get a front court player for him, but here's the thing, like, teams value front court players more than guards of Anthony Simons' archetype. You're not going to get a better player. So it's like there's no trade out there for Anthony Simons, in my opinion, that is going to help the Blazers next year. Every trade for Anthony Simons, I think, is going to be a little bit of a step back, and if the Blazers aren't willing to do that, they're going to put themselves in a tough position with Anthony Simons, or they'll just outright give him an extension, which is a problem, as I illustrated.
I do think in today's CBA, the ability to re-sign someone with not many teams having cap space, it looks like, as we always figure out in the mock off season, I don't think there's like a huge threat of like losing him for nothing that following off season. And if you do, a lot of teams now have to figure out a way to sign a trade for someone, so you at least get something for him.
You're not going to get back anything meaningful. If teams won't trade any, like, you know, what are you going to get back that you wouldn't get back right now?
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's. I mean, the Blazers could. You have a little bit of leverage, especially like with a younger still player.
But is that like, do you want to go into the offseason of 2026 with potentially $50 million in cap space, but we have a massive cap hold for Anthony Simons, and we're just playing the game of like, yeah, we'll bring you back maybe to still start ahead of Scoot going into year 4, but, you know, we're playing this. If you go into free agency with the idea of letting him walk and trying to let him sign and trade, you have to still keep his cap hold on the roster. I guess, you know, they have the moratorium, so like you could hope that he signs before the end of the moratorium and go out and use that cap space. But that's the problem with a sign and trade. You're probably bringing salary back. So if you go into free agency where you could have like $50 million of cap space and actually do some things, but you're just sitting here tied to Anthony Simons waiting for him to go somewhere so you can sign and trade him for some salary and maybe like a couple second round picks, that just feels like you're wasting an opportunity.
Why wouldn't you just let him go then and sign, if you were going to sign a max player?
But like, that's the thing is like, I mean, yeah, I guess, but like,
is it really that?
Why don't you get a asset for him now and try and get expirings? I mean, because you take a slight step back.
You'd have that money on the books, whereas Anthony.
Well, no, I'm saying right now, if you got back expirings.
Yeah, but you'd have to pick on your books depending on what that is. But what I'm saying is, like, if you go into free agency next year, and I don't know I haven't looked at next year's free agency. I'm trying to think of like who we could sign. That's like I don't know. It's weird because like, who are we going to sign that's like supplanting one of our core 5? You know, to start. So like, does it?
What, in free agency?
Yeah.
It's not just about, you know, this is not just about signing people. It's about potentially taking on money in trades and like.
But if they're like trying to make the playoffs, they're not going to be. They've never had that type of.
I mean, yeah, but like you can get you can get a Harrison Barnes and a first round pick and be like, Harrison Barnes can help us next year.
Yeah,
like what the Spurs did. So, but that's the thing is like, if you're going into free agency with Anthony Simons, if that trade comes to you where it's like a team is trying to lock that in ahead of free agency. You don't have that freedom to do that unless you just give up on Ant, and then it basically becomes like, oh yeah, we're trading Ant for this guy.
I mean, you know, I love draft picks, but like, I don't know, is like the 20th pick or something in next year's draft going to be an expirings? Is it that much different? Like, I don't know if that really changes our trajectory that much.
I mean, there's been plenty of players with a 20th pick that.
No, I understand that, Tori. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it really matters overall in the grand scheme of how they've rebuilt this. They haven't done a good job of adding assets. So I guess any asset would be better than nothing. But like, I just, I don't know if that's really going to be the difference between us like figuring this thing out and building a contender or not.
Yeah, if you're just looking at it from like a net gain standpoint, but you don't see the Chauncey Billups, if Ant's on the roster, handling that situation somewhat poorly, like he did at times this past season.
That's not what I was talking about. I was just talking
Yeah,
about
but like
the value of
yeah,
like, I don't think it's that bad if he.
but
He's, like,
trading
losing
Ant for
that.
that, it's like yeah, maybe it's not much value, but like there's so much that goes into the decision to do that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like I don't think they'll want to go into free agency like with a plan for how to handle Ant. I don't trust them to, like I feel like they go into free agency like with an offer on the table for Ant. They're not going into free agency like, yeah, we're gonna lose him, but maybe we can sign and trade him and get some assets or like, you know what I mean? That's the problem with taking them into free agency next offseason. Also, like if teams want to shed a contract before free agency, so they know where they're at the start of free agency. If you're the Blazers, it's like I could fully see them sitting there like, no, we're not going to do that, even though we could get back maybe a useful role player on a salary that a team just doesn't want going into next season. Maybe it's because they have to duck the apron, for example. And we could also get an asset for that. But no, we're not going to do that because we don't know what's up with Anthony Simons. And maybe we could sign and trade him, or maybe we bring him back and still have this logjam and still have these problems. It's just so messy that I don't trust the front office to handle it correctly.
Once again, there's no difference other than the draft pick of just letting him walk, and then you have that same flexibility that you're talking about.
Yeah, I do not think they would go into free agency like, let's let Ant walk.
Well,
because like if you're going to do that, like you might as well just get that asset, even if it's a small asset.
But like you could go into it being open to whatever happens. If you're able to pull off the move, you're comfortable letting him walk. If nothing happens, if you're not able to make a move and you have to re-sign him because there's no other options, then you can.
But yeah, I get your point. But to me, it's like if they don't trade him before that, then they're not open to the alternative of doing something else leading up to free agency, because it's like, all right, maybe you get a small asset attached to a contract in return for Anthony Simons. That's what would be on the table at the deadline anyway. So why would they extend that to free agency? Like, I feel like they're either willing to do it or they're not, and that's not going to change between like next year's deadline and free agency.
Because like it or not, that gives them another year to see if Scoot takes a step in his third year, whether he's starting or coming off the bench. If it gives them another year to see if Scoot can handle that. So
but your insurance policy shouldn't be a messy situation for a guy that'd be easily acquirable down the line when you're ready to win.
Why couldn't you say the same about Scoot?
Because you don't know what Scoot is. You know what Ant is.
Okay. But why not? Why not give more time to see what Scoot is?
Do you think the Blazers are going to get as clear of a picture as what Scoot is, and he's going to have the best chance to potentially take off coming off the bench behind Anthony Simons next year?
Obviously, if Scoot was just given a team and said, here, Scoot, you're going to get 36 minutes a game. Go see what you can do. We're going to take the reins off completely. Obviously, that's probably the best case to see what a player is or isn't. Okay. So I'm not disagreeing with that. But I do feel like it's not it has to be that way, or it can't be that way. I think it is. I can see a scenario where Scoot excels whatever role is given to him. He takes it, runs with it, keeps needing more. It's obvious he needs more. Hopefully
it doesn't get more.
Stuff gets more.
But then they don't give him more. Just like last season when he was playing better than Ant.
But that was not the whole season. Like, that was a part of the season. So if he does that this season, and like, I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm whoever's playing better should get the minutes. You know that. But like, if Scoot is playing awesome off the bench and we're winning games and stuff like that, I think they think, why can't that work? You know, like, and so like,
here's the thing that they'll fall into though. If they're winning games because Scoot's coming off the bench and playing great and maybe even playing better than Ant, they're gonna like the status quo. They're not gonna want to lose Ant for nothing if they're winning games, even if it's Scoot helping them win more games than Ant is. Then they go into free agency and it's like, let's keep Ant, let's pay Ant. We took another step this year. Why would we break it up? Just like we're kind of getting the feeling right now that it's like, yeah, they went from 21 to 36 wins. They just want to build on top of what they already have, not sell any of it.
So, okay, let's say they win 45 games next year. They run it back, win 45 games next year, and are looking much improved. You know, I don't know if that's good enough to win a play-in game or whatever and make the 8th seed or whatnot. But let's just say they are, and everyone, like, all, like, the main 6 or 7 players all contribute equally to that, and it's they have a really good thing, and then they're talking about just adding pieces to that core. You think they should just scrap that then and
no
go?
The hypothetical was if Scoot plays as good or better than Ant, but Ant is starting ahead of him and highly paid.
I'm just asking you, if they run it back next year and win 45 games and naturally progress to the 8th seed or whatever, win a play-in game, should they still let Anthony walk and give the runway to Scoot, or does it solely depend on?
Yeah. If Scoot's playing as good as Ant, he should absolutely be starting instead of Ant going into next season, going into his 4th year after. Yeah. Like,
what?
Yeah.
But what does it matter who's playing, like who's starting or who's playing the most?
Because choosing Ant is your long-term guard over Scoot. If Scoot starts playing as well as Ant in Scoot's 3rd year, is essentially, to me, choosing mediocrity over upside.
They're choosing both of them, though.
I don't think you're choosing Scoot if you're choosing him being a bench guard. You're not choosing upside with Scoot if you're choosing him being a bench guard. You're choosing him being a bench guard.
They're saying he has to be the bench guard.
So what, Ant's going to be the bench guard? Like,
I mean, if Scoot's better than him.
And they're going to pay Ant like $25 to $30 million to come off the bench?
Maybe.
I just don't see things going that way.
Yeah,
especially because Chauncey's probably still going to be here. New ownership group. Like, here's the thing is, like, if they were a really well-ran front office and a really good coach, yeah, maybe they could handle this situation well, trying to balance it. I don't have faith in their ability to do that. And I think we saw it last year where it's like Scoot would outplay Ant and have games where he played like 21 minutes and Ant's playing 35. And it was ridiculous. Like, how many times did we have that conversation? And it was also with, like, Klingon versus Hayton and other young guys as well. It was a problem with Chauncey. And, you know, maybe it was his contract status, this or that, but it's like he was trying to win games. And this year, he's definitely going to try and win games. And it's like there was multiple times where Scoot was having not just a single game stretch, like a week or a month-long stretch where he was playing as good as Anthony Simons, and it didn't seem to factor in at all. And it's like, all right, I don't trust Chauncey Billups to play the young guy, even if he's playing better. I don't trust this organization to prioritize the young guys because they still have Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, DeAndre Ayton, Matisse Thybulle, Robert Williams on this team. They haven't done anything to trade those guys away. And what they supposedly want for those guys is either unrealistically optimistic, or it's like, we don't want a first-round pick because we just want to try and be as good as possible, even if the roster construction and rotations are messy to the point where we're going to discuss maybe playing Ayton and Klingon together. Right? Like, it's just, there's so many, like, pitfalls to me where it's like, I do not expect it to go over properly. And that's why it's like, I just really want them to trade it and just avoid falling into the pitfalls I ultimately think they're going to fall into.
Yeah. I think we're ruling out the possibility that Scoot, like, isn't good enough. Like, I
mean, I don't think Ant was good enough for half of last season.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Like, that's the thing, is if Ant was Darius Garland, we're having a completely different conversation. If Ant was, like, better, it's a different conversation. Like, Taylor has a comment in chat, said Scoot was still awful on lots of nights. They are clearly trying to win next season. You can't trust Scoot on a nightly basis yet. You couldn't trust Ant at all for the first half of last season. He was awful. His best stretch, too, it felt like didn't come with him playing necessarily winning basketball, because it was just him hunting his own shot, and that was it. To, like, an extreme level. And he was making a bunch of shots, but when you talk about, like, actually trying to be a playoff team and win playoff series, like, that's not going to work against OKC. Like, that style of play is not going to work. So that's the thing. And with, like, his confidence being up and down, like, he was shooting the ball with a ton of confidence, but that also came with him being a bit of a black hole late in the season. Now you could say, oh, his teammates around him weren't that good or this or that, but I was not, part of this for me is, like, I was not particularly impressed with Ant last season. And given that, I don't think it's something where, like, Scoot has to be really, really good or else Ant should start over him, because I don't think Ant was really good last season. He was all right. He had a good stretch, but I was not impressed.
I mean, the question is Anthony going to play closer to his good stretches than the bad stretch? I mean, if you just eliminate the stretch at the beginning of the season, I mean, he had a pretty good year, but I understand what you're saying.
I'll also ask this of, like, Taylor Packer. He says Ant has a proven track record. Scoot doesn't. Well, Scoot hasn't. He's in year 2. Ant's in year 8. I would hope year 7. I don't know. I would hope Anthony Simons, who was drafted in 2018, has a proven track record. Like, I hope that he would have more of a proven track record than Scoot. So that's not really the point. That's not really the point. I forgot my other point, but I don't know. Like,
I mean, the coaching thing, we all agree on. I think every single person agrees. If someone is playing better than the other person, they should play more. That's just simple. Yeah.
Oh, I remember my other point. Since we're talking about Ant, Taylor, when did Ant start to really break out? And Eric, you can answer the question if you want to. But, like, when did Ant really start to break out?
I mean, he wasn't given a chance, really, until they traded CJ and Norm.
Yeah, but when he really started to break out was when Dame got hurt, and he became the starting point guard. He was playing off the ball next to Dame. He had some, the year after. But, like, we're talking about 2021, 2022. You remember that stretch? Dame gets hurt, has the abdominal injury, Ant starts to go off. And that's year 4. Yeah. But, like, that's the thing is Ant didn't, to get that opportunity, Ant didn't prove that he deserved that opportunity. His first 3 years in the league, it was like 4 points per game, 8 points per game, 8 points per game. And you could sit there and look at it like, yeah, no, he does not deserve that opportunity. But that opportunity came his way because Dame got hurt, and then he started to break out. And it's like, that's the issue I have with people saying, like, oh, in order to get rid of Ant, like, Scoot has to prove that he 100% deserves that opportunity before he gets it. Whereas Ant proved he deserved that opportunity because he got it.
I think there's a difference between, though. I mean, Portland was playing 3 guards in their starting lineup. There wasn't a lot of minutes or opportunity. Whereas I think Scoot has an opportunity to prove stuff. Like,
I mean, they're still playing 3 guards in the line.
No, I understand that. But in theory, there's no way, even coming off the bench or starting or whatever, Scoot should be playing 30 minutes a game, right? Like, there's no way he should not be getting the minutes, whereas CJ and Dame were always going to play 36 minutes a game, and that didn't.
Yeah, sure, but also, and in the second year, did play 21 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
In 70 games. Scoot last year played what, 26? So it's like,
but the difference is Anthony, when he got an opportunity early in his career, was like purely off-ball shooter. Like, he wasn't like a point guard type at all, and that's the difference. Is he showed something in those stretches when Dame got hurt and he took off, that he could maybe be more of a lead guard than a off-ball player. And like, obviously Scoot progresses to be more of an on-ball player than off-ball player. Now, if he continues improving his shooting like he did last year, maybe it's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But
I'm just confused because, like, if Scoot's, which we agree, Scoot's more of an on-ball player, how is him coming off the bench and then when he's in next to Ant, like, playing second fiddle to Ant? How is that best for him to show that?
Because I don't think he needs to play second fiddle, and that's why I'm saying, like, that's an issue that we all have with coaching. If he's better on ball than Anthony, and Anthony's good off ball, why aren't we utilizing that more in our offense? Like, that
absolutely
always been a question.
Sure, but like, this is just another one of the pitfalls where they won't handle it right. Like, it's just another there's just like so many things where it's like very unlikely they handle it right, keeping it.
That's 2 different questions. Whether I think Anthony is a good off-ball player if you let him be and run him in the right situations.
I don't even know about that.
I mean, this last season, Anthony graded amongst the top players in every offensive category in, like, all the advanced metrics, like A minus in every category, F in all the defensive categories, like including playmaking, creation, off ball, on ball, like everything. He was like top elite, amongst the like 10 best in like every category. And
so is he a graded F defender?
He was an F defender, yeah.
I mean, well, like, also, here's the thing is I feel like we're not taking defense into account here at all. Like, this is purely an offensive conversation. But, I mean, Scoot's already better than a defense.
The conversation's all encompassing, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, and this applies to me, too. Like, I feel like this whole conversation about these 2 players offensively, I mean, Scoot's already a better defender than Ant. And it's like, if you're trying to build a defensive identity, it's like, okay, Scoot has to, if Scoot's a better defender and a little bit worse offensively, like, does that prove that he deserves the opportunity over Ant?
But what I'm saying is, why can't they both succeed? Like, if they truly run the offense better, whatever.
I truly do believe there's something to be said for giving a point guard a starting role and the keys to an offense with like 35 minutes a game. Mm-hmm. And I think Scoot's ready for that. I think year 1, he was not ready for it. And it's funny because he got that opportunity a bit. But like later in the season, he started to progress. And I think it's a small sample size, but when Scoot started, he was better. And what 2 games did we sit back and say, like, he got the keys the most? Was when Nate Bjorkgren was coaching, and he had phenomenal games and looked as confident as ever. And looked as good as basically he did all season. He had that game winner in one of those Bjorkgren games. And it's like, I understand if you don't think that matters, but I also think you can absolutely make a case that it does. And that's the case that I'm making.
So to me, now you could make the argument. You can always counter this with saying, "But it's Chauncey Billups in charge of that, so how can you trust him?" But to me, how do we know? Like when they gave the keys to Anthony,
Did he come off the bench in those Brooklyn games? Am I remembering that wrong?
Probably.
I thought he started those games. Or maybe it was just like he actually played down the stretch when he was playing well.
He played down the stretch, yeah, because he had that game winner in that one, yeah.
Yeah, let me look. Yeah, he did not start those games. I'm misremembering that, so shout out to Trevin. But statistically on the season, he, as a starter, had a 61 true shooting percentage. In 10 games, he averaged 16.6 and a half assists in 30 minutes. And he had, off the bench, 52.5% true shooting percentage in 56 games, 12 points, under 5 assists. So, like, yeah, those 10 games are a small sample, but, I mean, he's in year 2. And if the goal is to figure out what Scoot Henderson is as a best case scenario or as somebody that could break out, it only makes sense to me to actually get that sample in him as a starter, because that's what it would be. Anyway,
so what if okay, once again, you counter this. I know the counter is going to be it's Chauncey Billups, you don't trust him, whatever. But to me, is there something to be said if a team doesn't think someone is ready or thinks someone has to earn something, especially when they're the number 3 pick? You would think that they would be wanting to give them every opportunity. So does that necessarily mean that it's just a matter of giving him the keys, or are they seeing something in practice versus players in the past that they gave the keys to or cleared the role for? Are they unsure if clearing the role for him is best?
Like, I mean, they don't practice much during the season, so you know, like, I mean, especially Chauncey's teams, like, right? Like, dude, how much do they practice during the season?
I mean, you play with players every week, like, you know, like, right? Like, you kind of know.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying, like, is it telling that they're not willing to do that for Scoot when they have been willing to do that for other people?
No, I just think it's dumb. I just think it's them. I just think it's it's the 2 timelines. Mm-hmm. I just think it's them being stuck on 2 timelines without wanting to get off of 2 timelines and not being willing to trade their vets for what they should be willing to trade their vets for. And it all goes back to, like, they, you know, supposedly, since they want to be better, they would not take a first-round pick and expiries for Anthony Simons to clear the deck for Scoot because they're stuck on the 2 timelines. It's the same reason why Jeremy Grant's still here. It's the same reason why, like, they're not just going to trade Ayton to clear the way for Klingon to start next year, even though they absolutely should. It's also the same reason Robert Williams III is for some freaking reason still here as our 3rd-string center. You know, like, it's all those reasons. Like, yeah, that's what I believe it is.
And so Miles Barnes says they all seem to say Scoot's a hard worker. Absolutely. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean he's better than anyone, though.
But, like, also some of it is projection. He improved a lot in year 2. I expect him, if he's a hard worker, which I think you can easily make that case from what we've heard, and then also the improvements he made last year, you should expect another step in year 3. So for me, it's like,
is that
clear the runway so we can take that step in a starting role where that could really catapult him compared to having games off the bench behind Anthony Simons where he might have a great game but only play 21 minutes. And then that's the thing, is like, if he plays really well in 21 minutes, it's not going to look as impressive as if he plays really well in 35 minutes. So then it's going to prolong the period of time that he can prove that he's ready to start. Because
having good games and playing 21 minutes, then it's obviously a problem, and we can keep addressing that problem.
Yeah, but like, it's
coaching staff, not.
But like, I feel like we know it's gonna be a problem. But also, it's like, if he's playing 36 minutes a game and has a good game, he might have 30 and 10. Whereas if he's playing 26 minutes a game and has 19 and 6, it's like, oh yeah, that's a good game, but it doesn't look as good, right? Because it's just in more limited time. So that's where it's like the whole thing about like Scoot proving it and proving that he earns it and having to prove over a large sample that he deserves a starting role. It's going to take more time to achieve a large enough sample to justify that with him coming off the bench playing less minutes than if he's starting.
Yeah. Is it possible that the expectations for Scoot were so low that his play seemed better than it was because of that?
No. When he had it going, he was legitimately a good, impactful player, like starting caliber point guard. He struggled to start and end the season, right?
Yeah, I mean, because like obviously true shooting percentage is the big thing. It jumped from below 50 to 54%. So like he was one of the worst shooters in the league his rookie year. Jumps up to 54, which still isn't great, but that's a big jump.
Yeah.
So that's good. But if you just look at like all his overall numbers, like per 36 and stuff, they're either equal or maybe even some cases like worse.
I feel like he reined it back a little bit. Per 36, assists are the same, rebounds are the same, points went down from 17.7 to 17.1. Yeah, like
a little less turnovers.
But I feel like this is with him struggling to start and end the year. That stretch he had in the middle of the season, for like half of his season, was what I needed to see. And this was in games where like sometimes when he was having his best nights, his minutes were getting limited. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't necessarily in the easiest situation to like have big games. Like there's nights he had rhythms and his usage was crazy, like we complained about on our post-game shows. So let me look up his splits like month by month. But in January, he averaged 15 points, 5 assists per game in only 28 minutes with a 63.6 true shooting. In February, in 11 games, 57.7 true shooting, 25.5 minutes a game. He's averaging 12.5 points, 5.5 assists. What is that per 36? That's like 18 and 7, 18 and 8, right? So like if he was starting and putting up those numbers on a 58 true shooting percentage, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's starting caliber. But because he did it in only 25 minutes a game, it's only 12.5 points and 5.5 assists. Like, that's not that good. Like, it's good, but it's not him proving he needs to start yet. And that's the whole difference between starting and coming off the bench. But like, you know, remember, he started October driving really well. He was still struggling with his shot. He struggled with his shot through like midway through December. And then latter half of December, January, February took off. And then March, he like kind of came back down to earth a little bit. So like, yeah, in totality, 54% true shooting percentage. He needs to expand beyond that. But that's taking into account like the entirety of his season. It's still a big jump over his rookie year. So it's like if he has a similar jump, like he went from 49 to 54 true shooting. Let's say he gets to 56.5, 57% true shooting in year 3. Like that's good. Like that's good enough efficiency, right? I think part of the reason why I want to give him the keys is I think last year he made improvements by like improving his decision making and reining back a little bit. Now I think year 3 is when he like figures out how to make the right decisions while pushing it more, while being more aggressive. And I feel like if he's the starting point guard, if he's given the keys, it's a better situation to try and cultivate that on a consistent basis where he's going to still have some games where he looks rough compared to coming off the bench where if he has those rough moments, it's like, yeah, you're only playing 20 minutes. You're only playing 19 minutes. You're not proving that you need to start. So.
Well, we'll find out pretty fast whether Chauncey means what he said was the key to turning around last season, and that was it didn't matter what your contract was or what your name was or whatever. And we know that's kind of BS, but hopefully that's the case this year.
I want to do a chat poll. What should the Blazers do with the Simons?
Antonio had a member for 5 months message. Thank you, Antonio. Biggest Scoot critique, the tongue out Selly. Doesn't like Scoot Selly.
I like his Selly, man. I like when Scoot gets hyped. I mean, the Moda Center just needs to be more packed and more raucous so that it matches his energy. But, like, options in this poll. What should the Blazers do with the Simon Scoot situation? We got trade Ant, start Scoot. We got keep Ant, make Scoot, prove it, quote unquote. Is there any other options I should add to this poll?
Trade Scoot. No.
Assuming they keep Scoot.
Everyone knows what the answer is going to be.
I'm stuck in the middle. Like, I'll just do I don't know. If you really don't know what you feel, I guess you can answer that.
Yeah, B Skrill's got it all figured out.
Trade Ant Thibault for someone and a draft pick, and trade Jeremy Robb for someone. Like a draft pick, what, in the future? Because you can't do that this year, most likely, because Thibault has a player option that probably won't be picked up by the draft.
Yeah.
But might be. I don't know. But
players accept them early all the time.
Yeah, but I don't think you're going to get anything for Jeremy and Robb. But, like, going back to what I said, my biggest fear is we're talking about, like, the Blazers' mindset. I would be disgusted if they gave an extension this offseason.
That stream's gonna.
Would you have any problem, like, if they just outright gave Ant an extension for, like, you know, same yearly salary for like 2 more years?
If it's around 25 mil?
Like 25 to 30 million a year? Yeah, because that's what he's making like these last 3 years. Or is the last couple years of his contract, right?
Yeah. See, unlike Jeremy, I'm not as worried about, like, I mean, we know for a fact his value isn't very good. Whereas Jeremy could have gotten, you know, at least a pick and, you know, a decent player like Rui or something at one point. So I don't know. I feel like that might actually help make him a better trade asset, especially if he plays okay. But yeah, I don't know, man. This new CBA is really messing with me.
Yeah. I would hate it solely for the reason of, like, giving up, basically potentially giving up on, I'll phrase it this way. I hate it for the reason of if it doesn't somehow help his trade value, which I think is likely not going to help his trade value, then
it can't be much worse than it is right now.
Yeah, but like let's say, all right, it doesn't help his trade value, so it's not going to help you there. Okay, so you're looking at it in terms of you're either basically giving up your meaningful cap space next summer for a guy who, in the best case scenario for the Blazers, is a bench guard. Long term. Like, I just don't think that's the right move. Right.
Yeah, or the team's really good this year. Don't worry about it.
I mean, but, like, if the team's really good this year, it's going to be because of a bunch of other guys. I'd almost rather take that and go into next season with the cap space. And just let him expire.
They still win 40.
Scoot,
47.
what?
What if Scoot struggles, but they still win 45 games?
Then we really are going to get stuck in mediocrity. Like, if Scoot's still struggling and this team wins 45 games, it's going to be on the backs of, like, Anthony Simons and maybe Jeremy Grant having a better season and, like, DeAndre Ayton. And
What if?
and they're probably still the 9th seed. If they win 45
Sharp's
games,
like an all-star.
if they win 45 games, they're probably still not in the top 8. So that's a bad situation. What'd you say? What was the other hypothetical?
Oh, it wasn't necessarily hypothetical. Like Sharp could take a jump.
I mean, yeah, but I'd rather have Scoot next to Sharp if Sharp takes a jump. I think Scoot is better next to Sharp than Ant is. Even if Scoot's not as good as Ant, I think Scoot is a better fit next to Sharp.
Well,
because I think defensively, I don't think Simons and Sharp together is the recipe at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you better hope Klingon is Rudy Gobert 2.0. That's the thing. If they start Simons and Sharp and Ayton next year and play them pretty heavy minutes, I don't see them being a top 10 defense. So, like, how good could they really be? Do you think if they start those three and play them 30 to 35 minutes a game, do you think they can be a top 10 defense? Because I don't.
I mean, they've proven that they can't.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the defense is clearly much better with Klingon on the floor. So, But still, I just feel like Ant and Sharp, yes, Ant is bigger, or Sharp is bigger than Ant and CJ were. So, like, theoretically, it's a better defensive backcourt, but it's kind of just like, you have more front court talent for sure. But, like, Dame led top 3 offenses. Like, I don't know. I want at least one solid defender in the backcourt.
Well, that's what, remember, Jeremy's going to start at the 2.
God, it's gross. It's gross.
Yeah, that's what we were doing.
But, like, that's the thing, too, is, like, assuming Sharp's the starting shooting guard of the future, like, I don't think Scoot has to... Scoot can be, like, 85% of Ant, and I'd still rather have Scoot start next to Sharp. Because I think Scoot's a better defender.
This is kind of blasphemy, but can you blame part of Scoot and Anthony's struggles on Sharp? Because, like, his shooting splits are terrible. Like, I mean, he's good driving and finishing.
Oh, no, you disappeared, huh? Wait, come back. Come back. See, I'm catching it now.
He was a better three-point shooter last year.
Wait, say that again. You disappeared for 5 seconds, but I caught it. What'd you say?
What part?
The part after Sharp making it, yeah.
Trevor says that's what happens when you talk bad about Sharp. Yeah, you can't. This is, like, to the rest of the fan base, me saying this about Sharp is like saying anything bad to you about Scoot. So...
No, the rest of the fan base is even more ruthless if you say anything about Sharp. I said Scoot might be as good of a three-point shooter as Sharp. You remember that last year? And somebody made a whole thread on Reddit, and there was a bunch of people trash talking. And then it turns out, like, yeah, Scoot is comparable to Sharp three-point shooter-wise. But anyway, go on.
I'm just saying, like, Sharp needs to improve his shooting. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter who our point guard is, I think, because... that you could actually argue that maybe Ant and Scoot is better option if he doesn't improve that three-point shot, because whoever it is needs that spacing, and they need to do something better with they need to do something better with Sharp to get him better looks maybe, but he's got to have better shooting splits in the future if he's gonna for sure be that guy too.
Has Sharp fully earned his starting role?
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so.
I don't know. Everything's just so convoluted. Everything's just so convoluted. And they want to build upon what's convoluted because they won 36 games. And we're talking about, like, man, maybe they have a really good season, win 45 games, and that makes them, like, the 9th seed. Right? So, it's just a mess, man. It's just a mess. Like, I just hope in the next year everything gets simplified from the ownership thing, hopefully getting a better ownership situation, to down to the roster and like their direction. Anything that's not a step towards simplifying things on like one path with the roster, to me, is a waste of time. Like, I'm just tired of these conversations we're going to have next year. I will lose my mind if I'm sitting here like, yeah, Scoot had 20-8 tonight in 25 minutes. Phenomenal. And Anthony Simons in 37 minutes was 5 for 13 with, 14 points and 2 assists. I will lose my mind. It'll be bad. I will be mad. And then the thing is I could stomach it this year because it was like, yeah, Chauncey should be gone after this year.
Yeah.
So.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if the Blazers don't make the playoffs, then heads are going to roll. And
you sure?
Well, there's a different ownership, but like,
I mean, yeah, you would hope, but
now there's the pressure of the playoffs, and this is what we need. I think we need that pressure. I think there's a difference between wanting them to make the playoffs or like making win now moves. I completely agree they shouldn't do that, but I think the pressure of the playoffs, the expectations of them being at least a play-in team, I think is a good position to put themselves in terms of they can't just keep the status quo. Like they might try to do it this year, but if it fails, they do the status quo and it fails, then they're going to have to make changes, I think, at the very least next summer. So I think it at least goes towards something.
I actually completely disagree. I think it's the worst I think it's the worst thing for them to have pressure to make the playoffs next year. Because I think it goes one of two ways. I think either they get too aggressive this offseason and make a bad move to try and make sure they make the playoffs next year. That's short-sighted. Or if they keep the status quo, then either the status quo fails again and sure heads will roll, but it's like, why do we just keep the status quo again? Or if the status quo succeeds, then they double down on it again, and then it's really like, man, is the youth timeline even a thing anymore? Like, sure, with Deddy and Tamati and maybe Clegan, but if they...
Other than Jeremy's the only one that's an older timeline.
But like Ayton, yes, I know he's younger, but he is not the future starting center of this team.
Yeah.
But like if they start him next year in the status quo and they like get an 8th seed, and then they go into free agency and Nance a free agent and Ayton's a free agent, I fully expect them to extend both of them.
But if they get the 8th seed, they're because they just ran the status quo, that means they all improved a little bit. And that would have to mean that they were playing Klingon a decent amount.
You would think, but like if they all improve a little bit and make the 8th seed, so they like keep running it back, is that necessarily a good thing? Because if that doesn't have the upside of being a contender later on, then they're basically just justifying to themselves getting stuck in a position where they.
I mean, they're already stuck in that position. That's
Yeah, but I think the pressure to make the playoffs is actually going to make it more likely they're stuck in that position.
Yeah, well, see, I'm fully expecting them to kind of run it back because I don't think there's a big dumb trade that makes sense for them improving. I think if anything, they'll get lucky and find a Jeremy Grant or a Thibault home or something. But I don't think there's like a big trade that's just like, oh wow, now they're playoff team. So I think they're gonna somewhat run it back or fully run it back, and then I don't see how that, as we talked about earlier in the show, how that succeeds. So I think I don't
Yeah, the thing is, if it doesn't succeed, then at the end of the year, it's gonna be like, why did we waste our time still not committing to the young core?
Yeah, but we already know that's the problem.
But that's why I don't think it's a good thing that they have that playoff pressure, because I think it's even more likely that they commit to that status quo, it doesn't work, and then it's going to be another year at the end of the season where it's like, why are we still not committing to this young core? And we'll probably have more of a sample like the young core actually being better for the team than lineups with Ant and Jeremy, etc. And then it's just like kind of a rewash of this year, you know?
Not this crap again.
What?
Klingon isn't ready yet. What do you mean, dude? Did you not see how good our defense was with him as a starter?
The only thing we have to say to anyone who says Klingon isn't ready yet is statistically the team was better with Klingon on the floor last year than Ayton. If he wasn't ready, that would not be the case. So your opinion is not backed up by facts. Your opinion is emotional. That's it.
Now,
if you have a fact to bring to the
center, yeah, maybe, but like that's different.
Yeah, but like if you have a fact you want to bring to the table, like okay, bring it to the table. But I mean, this team was just as good offensively with Klingon on the floor compared to Ayton, and they were 5 points per 100 possessions better defensively with Klingon instead of Ayton. If Klingon isn't ready yet, then Ayton was never ready. At least Portland version of Ayton is not ready for anything. Not ready for an ice storm. Not ready for a real bed.
Oh, God. Speaking of bed, yeah.
Yeah, you're cherry picking stats. How is talking... Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like people that defend Ayton over Klingon never actually base anything in reality. They say, oh, the fact that the team was statistically better with Klingon on the floor than Ayton is just cherry-picked stats. I say Ayton was better for the team than Klingon, so, you're just cherry-picking stats. Dude, you have nothing to back up your opinion. You have nothing to back up your opinion. No substance. No substance at all. I can back up my opinion with the eye test and the fact test.
One more year for what? He needs one more year to do what? I love that. He just needs one more year.
Yeah, like that's the problem I have with people, man, is like if you're gonna, like if I bring a fact to the table and you're bringing no facts to the table, you can't just sit there and say like, oh, your facts don't count. But that's arguments in 2025 regarding anything. It's just super easy on the internet to just completely disregard a fact and just say, nope, fact doesn't count. I say it's this way. It's a bad argument. That's a bad argument. So wait, this dude, no, so, okay, we're going to have fun with this. All right, we're going to have fun with this. This dude just called me out for cherry picking stats for talking about how the team statistically was better with Klingon on the floor than Ayton all season long. Okay, you want to know what his rebuttal is after saying I cherry pick stats? Who played better when the Blazers had that one streak? So I used a full season, and you said I was cherry picking, and now you're going to choose an 11-game stretch of that season. That's the most hypocritical thing I've ever heard. Your arguments suck. Do better. Do better. I mean, come on, man. That's funny. That's so bad it's funny. Anyway, you should never call out anyone for cherry picking a stat again. Oh. Yeah, he is rage baiting. But like this is people legitimately will argue with us this way, and it's just completely illogical.
This is the same person that always argues with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, but like I won't always take the opportunity to dunk on him, but when he serves up a lob that this easy, man, I will take the opportunity to dunk on him. Making it easy. So he wants to come back and keep making it easy? Fine. Welcome back on your 100th account. How is rage baiting if have different opinion? Because you said, bro, if you say somebody's cherry picking stats when they're talking about a stat from a whole season and then you go and basically try and take the same stat from an 11-game sample, that's being hypocritical and just BSing. Like, yeah, that's why. So, if I have to explain that to you for you to understand and you still somehow don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. Or you do understand that and you are rage baiting. One or the other. I don't know. Anyway.
Now he's gaslighting. He's setting all the bases. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway. To summarize, I've had a fun stream.
That's good.
I've enjoyed this stream. This comment. Give your opinion and avoid attacking the other side. Your opinion is fine as is. I will attack other opinions. That's what debating is. That's what basketball debate is. That's what sports talk is. If you have an opinion I think is bad, I won't be afraid to tell you why I think it's wrong. And then if you pull some gaslighting BS, I will call it out. So.
And this particular person will say water is wet, and he'll say no, water is dry. And then he'll be like, oh, you guys just don't allow other opinions.
Yeah, I mean, there's some opinions that are worse than others. There's some opinions that are just downright wrong or downright bad. And that's the thing is
oh my god, dude.
No, don't even. He done. Yeah. Nobody bans any of these people for different opinions. It's when they say, you banned me for different opinions. No, we'll ban you for saying that. Yeah. We'll ban you for lying. That's the thing. Yeah. So we'll ban you for lying. Don't lie.
How did you get banned for having
Here's the thing too, is I try and empower people with different opinions. I really do. In like a really wholesome, like empowering type of way. What do I say? I say this all the time. I'd love to hear why you think differently. Please bring some substance to the table. If you have a fact that backs up the way you feel, please explain it. And then they just come at me with like, your fact doesn't matter, my 1/8 of your fact matters, and, you know, he's just not ready. And that's it. Which is a bad argument. Me and Eric can sit here and debate something, and we can debate it with substance on both sides and opinions and debate it in depth. That's why I really enjoyed this stream. It was a really good conversation. Yeah. If you come in our chat, you better be prepared to actually come up with a good argument. That weak stuff that's on Reddit won't fly. Won't fly. Shout out to Aeromancer. Water isn't actually wet. Yeah, but it's definitely not dry. Or is it? Anyway, we'll take questions for about 5 minutes, then we'll wrap up the stream. All right. I love how that guy like tried to pretend he wasn't on a new account, then he just basically like called us out for banning him.
Yeah. Oh no, I know who that was. Too.
yeah, just lying his ass off. Anyway. But yeah, like we can technically ban for any reason we want to. We don't, but like if you come in chat and people don't like having you in chat and we don't like having you in chat, we can easily just say like, yeah, you're not contributing to the chat. Get out of here. We can do that if we want to. We give a lot of leash. We give a lot of leash. There's people that have been begging us in chat to ban accounts and this and that, and we haven't. And maybe should have. So. What do you think about getting Corey Kispert from the Wizards? I did that in our mock-off season. I would like him as a shooter that could play the 3.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what we give up.
Would you trade Thibault and a second for him?
I'd maybe trade Thibault, like a 3-team trade where we didn't have to give up a second, maybe. But yeah,
I would trade Thibault in a second for sure. Didn't Kispert have a really bad year? No, like
his shooting splits weren't good. I think
he was 57% from 2, 36% from 3, 85% from the free throw line. True shooting percentage of 58.4%. But like the last 2 years, it was even better. It was 66 true shooting than 62% true shooting. Mm. But you would hope, like on a team with more creation, he maybe gets a little better shots.
Yeah.
But like he still averaged 12 points per game in 26 minutes. Like he's not gonna like wow you with like really much else. But I feel like he's okay in a bunch of other areas. So it's like, yeah, you got yourself a decent shooter. That is like a smart player. Not really gonna try to do too much. Not gonna make many mistakes. He can cut. I feel like that's kind of the prototypical backup 3. But yeah, like if you get him, you're just hoping that he gets back to shooting like he did in his second year, where he shot 42% from 3. I mean, year 3 averaged 13 a game.
I definitely think, as we've talked about many times, the Blazers last offseason had a specific need in mind in rim protection. Went out and got Klingon, who they thought would be really good. That was proven correct. And so I think this offseason, they feel like they fixed their defense enough to where they could add a shooter, maybe that isn't the greatest defender. So like Kispert definitely fits that category. Whether it's Luke Kennard or if they find their own version of AJ Green or Sam Hauser, or I don't know. Maybe that's their trade target, Tori. Maybe they trade for Klay Thompson.
Yeah, I brought that up actually. Yeah, like Robert Williams in a package for Klay Thompson.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Like Robert Williams to a third team probably, but
Yeah,
Like I've always thought if Dallas trades for KD,
I mean they wanted. I don't know if that was Nico. Yeah, it was Nico. Thibault
yeah,
finally gonna be
yeah.
a.
But like if Dallas trades for KD, then you could have Robert Williams to Phoenix to be like a center there, and then Clay instead of going to Phoenix comes to Portland, and that's a way that like maybe both those teams could take back less, so that they are only hard capped at the second apron.
Well, Grayson Allen, there's another.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Question.
So like I definitely think like one of those types of guys is going to be their target. Um,
Yeah,
Someone who can not a starter level guy, just someone who can come off the bench and provide some spacing, especially if they keep Anthony. I think you want some sort of shooter in that second lineup with Scoot.
yeah.
I think having a guy like Clay or Kispert or Kennard or something would definitely help Scoot out, clearing up the lane a little bit.
Absolutely. Kennard is my guy for that role.
Yeah.
I would love Kennard. But like with Ant, like I want to trade Ant and then get Kennard with MLE. And I think he's a better shooter than Ant and like can play make for others a little bit and won't have the ball in his hands as much as Ant and can come off the bench and but replace his shooting 120%. Like Kennard is lights out. So that's my guy. Tyler J asks, start the streams earlier so we don't all have to be tired. Honest question for you, Tyler. Do you think these streams are the only thing I do with my life? That's my question. Like,
Well, you said you didn't work today.
I didn't work today, no. But, it's kind of nice my girlfriend did. It's kind of nice to see my girlfriend for a couple hours before she goes to bed. And also, we watch playoff games. And I cannot start streams earlier on Thursdays. So, yeah, like... Vic Krichke is also like a shooter, small forward shooter. The names are like if the Blazers were drafting high enough, Con Knippel. If not, then you got Corey Kispert. You got like Vic Krichke. Had some good moments with Atlanta last year. Shot 43.7% from three in 57 games, shooting 3.5 a game, 41% the year before. It's funny because Basketball Reference lists him as a point guard, and he's not really a point guard, but like on a per minute basis, man, per 36, he averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shooting 44% from three last year. Like if he's available for cheap on the trade market, I'd definitely take a flyer on that. Because that's the thing. The Blazers seem to value guys that can make the right pass, which is funny because, like, Danny Klingen, they brought in those guys, good defenders, but also, like, smart passers. But then they don't run a motion offense. They don't run much in the half court. It's like you got to utilize this stuff. So that's why I like Kennard. That's why Krejci wouldn't be a bad guy, just because both those guys know how to pass. Both those guys see the floor pretty well, especially Kennard. Tyler J says most people that have lives don't stay up super late. That's not true. It's not true. Some people work night shift. My mother worked night shift for the longest time. I go to bed, wake up, work, go to the gym, play basketball, stream, sometimes work some more, sometimes work till 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Like, Colt says, I work from 12:30 to 5 a.m. Guess I'm not a normal person. Guess not, man. Guess not. Arrow says my life is based around being able to talk to people who wake up in their own time zone at 7 in my time zone at 4 p.m. Yeah, like your waking hours don't reflect that. But yeah. The good thing is you can always watch back the stream. We appreciate having you here live though. Appreciate you having you here live. This is also like the normal stream times for post-game shows most of the year, so it's pretty consistent. Can you go over Coward's upside? 6'5", 7'2" wingspan, 8'10" standing reach. Measurables are great. Good 3-point shooter, crafty finisher, like good feel, passing upside.
Good defender.
Yeah, good defender, like well-rounded. Yeah.
No, Tyler, I don't like anything where you like typecast certain people just based on their
Yeah.
sleep patterns. Like that's
Yeah.
a lot of people don't sleep much at all.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not even really scrutinizing it. I'm just saying I disagree.
Who do you think is likely to be picked at 7 for the Blazers? Believe it or not, we do not have the 7th pick, so I don't think it matters who the Blazers would pick at 7.
Yeah. We had
I know
7,
we had
then 3,
Flynn
then
and
7,
Carton.
then 11. So next year we will either have 7 again or we'll have 15. Wait, we can't.
No, we can't have
That's
that.
the other thing that sucks about getting the 8th seed is like, yeah, it doesn't matter if we get our picks back and then what? We get an 8th seed and lose the 15th pick. My crazy coward reminds me of Anthony Edwards. A little bit. Like, I don't think he's like Edwards. He's not the same athlete. I'm just reading a comment. I think Philly should take VJ at 3. I was just reading Elizabeth Allen's comment. I think VJ is the pick at 3. I don't know if you saw what Reese shared earlier, but it was basically like just a certain subsection of stats, which is always like kind of cherry picked because you just set parameters a certain way to reflect certain things. But like, I forget what the parameters were. I don't know if you saw what I'm talking about, but it's basically like players with a similar statistical profile are not impressive in the league.
I forgot what it was like assist percentage under 10%, steal percentage under 2%, and free throw percentage under a certain under 70 or something.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the greatest list of players.
But like if he makes like 2 more free throws over the year, he's not even in that section. So that's the tough thing with breaking things down that way. But it does speak to his problems as a prospect.
I'll always remember this. Like, this is the ultimate comeback to anything anyone puts like that. And that's a few years ago.
Yeah.
Reese posted something that basically said it was impossible for Jalen Williams to be good because he fit this parameter that was 100% guaranteed to be a bust. Every player on that list was a bust. And, it was freaking third team All NBA. His third year, and All-Star. Yeah. So you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but it is the parameters do bring up alarming stuff for someone. It was like non-centers with those numbers. Like if you're a big man, I guess.
Yeah, I have Bailey 7th on my big board. I think that's probably where he'll end up. Like, I'm trying not to take consensus into account. I'm trying to just go off of my own 2 eyes and my gut. And yeah, I'm a 7. What's a player at 11? Where was the comment? There's a question basically like who we would be mad with the Blazers drafting at 11. There's two names that immediately pop off the top of my head, and they are Thomas Sorber and Ben Serif.
At 11?
Yeah. Like, I'd be mad with them drafting those guys at 11. Yeah. I know that's, like, high for them at this point. I guess Liam McNeely as well. Asa Newell. To go for somebody that's, like, more in that range, I guess.
I think all those guys have fallen back beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, but, like, that's the thing is everybody talked about in that range I'm pretty fine with. Like, if they took Asenge, Demon, Carter Bryant, Nick Clifford, Yakuchonis, even Lendeborg, Coward, Queen. I'm cool with all those guys. Now, if they draft Yakuchonis, they better trade Ant, but...
Yeah, I think out of all those guys, this might be stupid, but I think I would be least happy with Queen.
Yeah.
Of like the more realistic guys, yeah.
Is that because you have him lower or you just don't like his fit on the Blazers?
Little both.
Yeah. I still have him at 10, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I think he's like a lottery pick, don't get me wrong. Like, so the guys you mentioned are more like I don't like them at 11, but I also think it's a bit of a reach for those guys. So like at this point, so then I'd be equally frustrated because we picked someone we probably could have traded back and gotten still, and then it's not someone I like. So
yeah.
But if we're just like sitting there at 11 and like the guys we could realistically take, like if we took Queen over Coward or something like that, I would be a little disappointed maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I kind of would be too. There's just so many good like small forwards in this range.
Yeah.
And like a small forward that can shoot off the bench is a role we need to fill. And there's like a lot of guys that I think have sneaky upside. So like Clifford, Bryant, Asenge, Coward, Demon. I don't know if I said Demon. Like those are the guys. Tristan Klein says Clifford at 11. Yikes. I don't understand that. I think Nick Clifford is one of the safest bets in this draft, and I think he's a good athlete, has some creation aspects, like became a better passer, a better shooter. I could see him being like if he somehow ended up on the Celtics, I could see him, being a starter that's like the perfect role player down the line for a contender. For a team like that. Maybe after they trade off some salary.
Yeah, there we go. I don't really want Colin Murray Boyles at 11 either.
Yeah, I'm with that. I am with that.
As Elizabeth Allen says, he's a really good defender, but limited offensively, doesn't shoot well, and we already have those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I really wish we had a second pick in this draft, man.
Yeah.
Because I wish we had like the 28th pick. I feel like we never have a late first, at least since Simons, I guess. Last year we had an early second, but we traded it for future seconds. But like, if we were sitting here with the early second, I'd be putting you guys on to, I'm probably saying his name wrong, but Neoklis Avdalis. That is my guy.
There's Georgios.
He's better than Georgios. Dude, he kind of plays a little like Luka.
Kalazakis. What was that guy's name?
Yeah, Kawasaki's. That was like deep sleeper. This is somebody like that should absolutely, and I think will get drafted in the second round. Have you looked at any of his tape?
No, I don't really know much about him.
Dude, he kind of shoots and plays a little like Luka. Like some of like his split, like between the legs dribbles, like just kind of like the way he sets up some of his dribble moves. But like he's a decent athlete. I think he measured at let me look up measurements. He measured 6'7.5" without shoes, 8'8.5" standing reach, 6'9" wingspan, so like small forward size, but like can handle the ball and shoots threes off the moves, step backs, all sorts of stuff. Like some passing flashes, runs a little pick and roll. I think if you watch some tape on him, I think you'd like him.
Cool. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, check him out before Thursday, and because I'm curious. Like he's my sleeper right now. But anyway, anything else, Eric?
Thanks everyone for watching. Hope to see you guys on Thursday. No Hoops Crush again this week because Crushables is out of town. So thought we'll return next week, I guess.
Yep. Blazers have workouts tomorrow. So that's something we can discuss on Thursday. The guys they worked out, some of the interviews. Expect some of that tomorrow. At least that's the rumor, is they'll have their first post-lottery workout. So get that to look forward to. And yeah, we're out of here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. Appreciate you guys joining the stream. Hopefully you have a good rest of your night and a good rest of your week. We'll catch you again on Thursday. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.